If you thought Patrick Beverley was insufferable during the season, get a load of this. The dude recently pulled the classic foot-and-mouth a-hole with his spicy comments about the NBA stars, setting the Twitterverse ablaze. In today's video, we tell you all about Pat Dev's most recent Trump-esque rant on ESPN and how it hasn't gone down very well with half the NBA. But first, a reminder about our brand new giveaway. We're giving away a PS5 with a copy of NBA 2022 and Madden 22. All you have to do is watch the full video, leave a like, comment the keyword hidden in the video, and make sure you're subscribed. It's that simple. First up, Pat wants a piece of that pie. At this point, anyone can see Pat Bev's plans from a mile off. He clearly wants a juicy gig as an NBA analyst by the time he retires. Now don't get us wrong, he's arguably among the NBA's finest defenders this season, but he's also 33. At this relatively older age, he's just exploded at the top of his game. No matter how well he does, we all know what 33 means in an athlete's career. In the simplest of terms, he's a boomer now and doesn't have much time left on his hands, career-wise, of course. And Pat realizes it too, so naturally, it's about time he starts looking for that job security elsewhere. Looking at all the success that former NBA players like Charles Barkley, Reggie Miller, and Shaq are enjoying, we think it's pretty obvious that Pat too wants a wee bite of that pie. Next, things are getting ugly. It wasn't nice to see him acting petty against Russell Westbrook after being stomped on during the Timberwolves versus Lakers matchups. We got a decent idea of how nasty Pat can be when he's acting like this because in the playoffs, he eventually swallowed his words. And now that he's no longer in the spotlight, he needs to bring his A game to ESPN in order to secure that dough. We all know that his offensive comments and even provocative actions toward various NBA players and clubs have made it to the headlines, and he's been the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. Pat has been roasted by NBA stars mercilessly, and things are about to become even uglier since he isn't going anywhere anytime soon. He's looking to use that troll mouth of his to further his career. If you let him, the man will speak your ears off. He just doesn't shut up. And now, Pat disses CP3. The most recent and very public piece of slander by Patrick Beverley was against none other than CP3. He trashed the man's entire career. In a not-so-surprising appearance on ESPN, Pat Bev held no punches back throughout and also encouraged the world to publicly diss Chris Paul for not following through on his promises. The first thing he talked about during the interview was CP3's defense, calling it overrated. He even went on to call him a cone that stands still and doesn't do much. Ouch, who hurt you, man? In an extremely petty fashion, Pat, who himself is a sporting dinosaur, is picking on another player's defense who's close to 40. We're surprised Pat is going down that road and commenting on something that had personally also hurt him in the past. A similar comment by Russell Westbrook ruined his career, as per himself, so it makes no sense why he'd want to say the same about another legend. Now, you may be wondering, like many, what has Chris done to have so much hate directed at him? Well, the two apparently go way back. Pat has had a beef with Chris since high school, and he's clearly not over it. Picture this, two roommates at a big high school camp. A bunch of stars are there, including LeBron James, OJ Mayo. Pat guards CP3 and talks a ton of trash. Some things don't change, do they? Then he goes on to lock him down in front of the scouts, bullies him, and insults him. Who isn't going to be bitter about something like this? Chris apparently remembered all of this and gave his bully Pat a tough time in the NBA. We don't really blame him, honestly. It's not just been a verbal thing for Pat. He's also crossed the line in the court. Pat elbowed CP in the bubble and got ejected. He even shoved Chris after a game when he wasn't looking. He's incredibly petty and bitter. We think he's also kind of jealous for whatever reason. Not just that, it took a step further. Hear this one out. Pat also believes he has the ability to lead LeBron James to a championship. Okay, now he's really getting ahead of himself. Up next, NBA response to Pat. Like many of us, NBA players didn't appreciate his tone towards CP3, including Damian Lillard, who took offense about Pat disclosing a private conversation with George Paul about Chris and the Suns. He also trolled him, saying that his defense numbers weren't bad because no one guarded him. Be right back, crying. Kevin Durant wasn't having it either and hit back at Beverley for acting as if his words were the law or that he was an all-time great. Even sports journalists like Matt Barnes called him a clown and criticized his disrespectful behavior towards CP3. Another sports analyst, Doug Gottlieb, said that Pat appears to have little understanding of how the media works. He advised him to get rid of his bias as a former athlete and simply look at it and be honest about it. He said, Pat Pat Beverley, you utterly lose them when you act like an egotistical NBA player. But with all that being said, you gotta give credit where it's due. Beverley has all it takes to be an explosive NBA analyst. No cap. His recent analysis has set the NBA world ablaze. Everyone is talking about it. We'd say he's done a pretty stellar job at getting what he wanted, attention, and most likely a place on ESPN. Now, in other news, Shaq trashes Donovan and Rudy. Pat isn't the only hater in the NBA universe right now. Shaq too has had a reputation of sorts in this area. Where else do you think Pat gets it from? Shaq is hating on Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell yet again. In his recent podcast, the former NBA player claimed Donovan needs to work on his passing, defense, yada yada. Yeah, none of that. Basically straight up said that he sucks. And no, this isn't the first time he's come out with all guns blazing towards the young star. Last year he said all this to his face. Then he went in on Rudy Gobert, and things got a little spicy. What started off as an analysis of the game quickly turned into making fun of Rudy because he's French. That's so unprofessional and a bit racist, we think. Shaq is pretty funny, we gotta give him that. But he's just being a bully at this point for views. Rudy didn't hold back either and fired back on Twitter saying he'd lock him up, which may not be entirely true, but it all started because an old player couldn't have set aside his arrogance. We think Shaq just feels nostalgic about his good old days, and he wants people to talk about how well he performed at his peak, so he just does that by putting down the current players. Look at his IG post, for example. The captions are all about I, me, and myself. Even on ESPN, he's all about his own achievements and barely about the game analysis, which comes across as a bit insecure, we feel. Mavericks face a fine for rowdy bench behavior. In case you thought the NBA was all about beefs and trash talking without any rules and decorum involved, Byron Spruill, president of the league operations, recently stated that the Mavs have been penalized for $50,000 for breaking league rules regarding team bench etiquette. The amount also includes previous violations of club bench etiquette during the NBA playoffs in 2022. During the Dallas Mavericks' 123-90 victory over the Phoenix Suns in Game 7 of their conference semifinal playoff series, several players and a member of the coaching staff stood for an extended period of time in the team bench area, stood away from the team bench, and were constantly intruding on the playing court, that is. NBA issued the most swearing fine in 2022. As you've probably figured out by now, NBA players, perhaps more than any other major American professional league, are not afraid to speak their mind. According to Howard Beck of Sports Illustrated, this habit has cost players a total of $95,000 in fines for cursing this year, the most the league has issued in a single year since 2 decades. And with teams led by fiery players like Draymond Green and Chris Paul still alive in the NBA playoffs, that number could rise to 6 figures before the season ends. Since COVID-19 began in early 2020, the 2021-22 season is the first in which teams were welcomed by largely full arenas for the whole year. So, NBA President of League Operations Byron Spruill stated that the league has redoubled its efforts to enforce certain standards and decorum, not just on the court or in official press conferences, but also on social media and in print interviews. With so much being done to make the NBA a gentleman's league, we're going to have to wait and see what Pat Bev's future has in store. Dude is clearly pissed off the entire league and media associated with it. Will he get the job security that he's been so desperate for, or will he be shown the exit? What do you think about Pat's comments about some of the biggest NBA legends? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. See you in the next one.